Okay.
What other books have you read that you hated?
I didn't hate all of them, just that one. I didn't. I a lot of things I've read are very old
Uh-huh.
because I'm in grad school. So if it's not 400 years old, then I'm probably not reading it. But no, I enjoyed my Paradise Lost class, and that's where I read Toni Morrison's A Mercy actually,
Uh-huh.
and was actually ended a. We had to write a 22-page paper about all sorts of highfalutin things, and her novel was the one I picked. So
Yeah.
I argued how she was in direct dialogue with Milton. He has one line where he calls out the American, and I argued Toni Morrison was the American. So
Cool.
it must have been successful. I got an A.
Must have been. So we're live now, and I can't tell whether anybody's on. So if anybody is on, please post a chat, post a comment so we know you're there. I know this is a beautiful summer night, so I can't imagine all that many people are hanging around their laptop or staring at their tablet. But this is Michael McCullough from Willard Library, broadcasting live from Burley Corners. Do you know where Burley Corners is, Nicole?
Near Penfield?
Yeah, it's in Penfield.
All
Good job. It's
right.
not near it. It's in it.
It's in it?
Intersection of 78 and 66.
Okay.
So I'm sure some farmer out here was named Burley, and that's why. But in any event, my guest tonight is Nicole Mullis. Nicole L.V. Mullis.
Yes.
Tell us what the L.V. stands for.
Nicole L.V. Mullis, the L is for Louise, which is my middle name. And when I got married, I actually went back and forth about whether I wanted to merge the kingdoms of the last name.
Uh-huh.
And so as a compromise, I threw my surname, Varicki, into my middle name. Had quite a nice talk with the Secretary of State, who first of all did not think I was old enough to be married. That's what you get for having a round face. And then I argued with her that no, I wasn't taking my husband. I was taking his last name, but I didn't want a hyphenated last name. And anyway, Varicki is spelled Vereecke, so it's long.
Yeah.
So yeah, but that's a nod to, I don't know. That used to be my byline, you know.
I know.
So anyway, I put the V in for Dad. You're welcome,
Good.
Dad.
Very nice. And so Nicole, as everybody knows, is a columnist for the Battle Creek Enquirer. I'd like to take credit for hiring her, but she just came and told me she was going to do a column like it.
That is not the way that happened, but okay. I think I met you for the first time, actually, when I was going to Canada, and you guys said I could write the Sunday column, and I was so excited about it, but I knew we were going to Canada, and I didn't know if you guys would keep me. And I just remember going into your office and saying, we're coming back, but, be in Canada. And you said to me, well, I think that would be interesting. A mom with issues takes her show on the road. And I was like, is that what the column's about? But okay.
Did I really say that?
You did. You said a mom with issues takes her show on the road. I'm like, so you're going to let me do it, right?
It was. I actually enjoyed it. I think readers did too. I mean, that was, yeah. I mean, you're like in a foreign place, and relatively speaking, and
yep, relatively speaking.
It's
weird when you go to another country, though. I think I was never more aware of being an American than I was when I was in Canada.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you sort of like have to represent your country at all times, which made it hard when you had like a disagreement with this school, because was it me, a parent, having a disagreement, or was it an American being intolerant? Like, that's how things felt a lot, where you didn't want to be a bad representative.
Oh, sure. And what was it like coming back? I know I'm dredging up deep memories now. We're supposed to be talking about today, but...
Actually, I had someone write me before I came back, and it was not a very nice email. At least it didn't feel that way. And what the person was pointing out, it was a reader, actually. So if you're out there, hi. But she said, when you come back, it's going to be harder than going there, because no one's going to care about what happened over there. And you're going to be out of step with everyone in here. And I thought, oh, what a depressing thing to tell somebody. But Coming back was actually hard because we went back to our same house and the same school system and everything, but they had missed 2 years of our lives and we had missed 2 years of their lives, and it was not as simple going back. Um, but you don't talk about it. When you go to a new place, everyone wants to hear about your journey. When you come back, they're like, get in line, do what you do, So it was different.
Yeah. So, so you've been writing a column for the paper how long?
I'm back.
Oh, did somebody say hi, Mick? Am I gone? Hello? Nicole's gone. You're gone.
I'm having a little trouble.
Okay.
I see your little circle circling around. I don't know if you can see me.
I can see you. Well, I was going to talk to Nicole about how she's maintained that column for so long.
Ah,
Are you? Am I back?
you're back.
All right, and we got a couple of viewers now too. So be on your best behavior.
I will. Now we gotta talk about serious stuff.
So, I mean, you've really stuck with the column for a really, really long time. I mean, how long?
Surprisingly,
10 years?
longer than that.
Yeah, yeah,
I started in 2006.
yeah. And it
So
has quite a following, right?
I'm assuming so because I'm still here.
Yeah. No, people
Every time
love your
something
column.
changes at the paper, I expect to hear "It's been nice knowing you. Thank you for your service. Goodbye."
Well, I know that it got pretty good traffic, so to speak. I'm glad I don't have to worry about that anymore, but somebody does.
Yes, somebody does. No, actually, I'm incredibly grateful. I It has been strangely the most consistent thing in my life for the last 60, more so than anything else. And it's when Canada, it was my connection to home. I probably enjoyed writing the column more from Canada. It was like I had this private little channel with home, and we had some crazy experiences there. And no matter where I was, a laptop was out at the same time every week, and it was an absolute pleasure to share some of that. And because of it, I have this weird collection of my life that I don't think I would even remember necessarily. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. I just, I mean, the thing that makes it special is you take the everyday, the mundane, the pedestrian, and you find meaning in it. And I think that that's a real, I think it's a real comfort for readers a lot. I think that that's how they identify with an author. That's how they identify, when they follow it. And I told you I might read a piece of your column from today. And, if you haven't read it, folks out there, we have 3 viewers, Nicole, at least.
All right.
And one probably somebody from your family, one's probably somebody from my family, and we might have somebody from the library. I mean, who knows?
The librarian. Besides you, I mean, of course.
But I just love, you're in a waiting room, and you talk about how you use these waiting rooms as places to, write. You kind of get away from it, and waiting rooms are really good for that. And I just love this. Where are we here? Yeah. And so this woman makes eye contact with you, and you're like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Leave me alone. And but you kind of, the thing goes on, and you wait. You nodded your head without comment, and then the clerk comes in and comes out, and you take that as an opportunity to let your eyes fall to the ground. But then you steal a glance up, and she's looking at you expectantly.
Yes, she never broke eye contact with me. She's just like,
and I can just see you. I mean, here's the part I'm going to read. I let go of my laptop bag. You've caught me. And the waiting woman was a natural storyteller. She had owned her car for 8 years, but had yet to reach 40,000 miles on it. Are you taking notes?
no, there's just, what? I have such a lousy memory. I really, really do. But when you say something to me that is just unique, or to you or to whoever I'm with, and the idea of owning a car for 8 years and you're not, I mean, that said so much to me right there about who this was that was in the waiting room with me. Like, that's the stuff I don't forget, or those real intimate details that that's not even something like if I was writing a script I would ever write down on the paper. Like those are the things that stick in this weird brain of mine. But
Yeah. Well,
her name, if she had told me her name, it would have been like, but
yeah.
that
Yeah. Well, that's why you're a writer. Details. You can make up the
details.
names. She said the only thing that ever went bad in her car was the battery, which stranded her at the casino one cold February day. While waiting for a tow truck, she had called her sister in Florida, asking her to come pick her up. She laughed at her joke, as did I. Our conversation continued at a good clip, eroding our stranger status. I learned she was retired and lived alone, as most of her family was in Texas, Arizona, and Florida. She was considering moving closer, but the pandemic put that on hold. The clerk reappeared, interrupting our conversation. The waiting woman approached the desk. I couldn't help but hear the expensive needed repairs. The woman asked for a printed estimate, saying that she needed to wait for her next check. Concern crept into my heart. See, empathy. You're feeling empathy now. When the clerk left, the waiting woman turned to me, eyes bright with triumph. This was her second quote, which was twice the price of her first quote. She chuckled, as did I. The waiting woman thanked me for chatting, as the pandemic had made such conversations rare. See, now that was a moment. That was a moment, and I think we kind of live for moments like that right now among all this uncertainty, isolation, fear. Yeah, so I mean, it's a real bomb. So thank you. Thank you for
Well, thank you.
sharing.
Thank you to that nice lady. I
Yeah,
often wonder when I do these things if there's someone who would read the paper. Sometimes I'll do a caricature of someone or I have this experience or this moment, and that person will reach out and write me. And they're always really nice, but there's that moment where I know I'm taking something from your life without necessarily asking permission. But the truth is when I'm there, I don't know that that's going to stick with me later.
sure. Yeah,
But yeah, what I wanted to go in there for and what I came out with were two different things. And I think in these times, having a conversation with a stranger is 100 times more important than anything else. I mean, we need it. Everyone needs it. I
yeah,
needed it, to be honest.
yeah,
It wasn't like I don't spend enough time not isolated, but actually a lot more isolated than I used to be.
yeah, yeah.
Um, So
Good.
yeah, I appreciated that from her, and I hope she didn't mind me sharing it.
Yeah. I'm
Besides,
sure she would.
I loved that she was so nice. And, oh, I need the printed estimate. I have to wait for a minute. Man, she knew exactly what she was doing the
Yeah.
minute she walked in there. She was back checking the first quote, make sure all the repairs are exactly the same, and she was getting a better deal at the end. I was like, and I was worried about you.
Yeah, yeah. So that was awesome. So what have you been up to other than writing your column?
Well, I am in grad school, so I spent part of the summer writing and performing in little play pieces for a graduate class on WebEx, and also preparing for teaching in the fall and for going
Yeah,
back to school. And I'm excited because instead of teaching basically our version of freshman English, I was offered a chance to teach a creative nonfiction writing workshop. Um, and that's where I started reading. I've been reading a lot of personal essays this summer,
yeah.
trying to find examples. Also, learning what an essayist is. I know that sounds crazy, but I've never thought about it. And the more I read about it, the more I'm like, I think I might be an essayist.
Yeah.
Maybe more so than a columnist. But
Well,
anyway,
it's an art form, and you brought something to read. But tell us a little bit about the difference between a column and an essay, and why people might want to read them.
well, I think probably the biggest difference, I don't, honestly, I don't think they are that terribly different. I will say what I think is different about taking it from a journalist's point of view or how journalists are trained. I mean, journalists, you don't need to tell us to be inclusive. Like, it's funny what I'm reading about. Remember, the reader needs to know, they might not know your background or they might not know. I mean, when I was in Canada, if I had $1 for every time I had to write in a column, my husband's on a 2-year work assignment in Canada. I wrote that every time. And the reason is you don't worry about the readers who might be reading you every week. You want to make sure that reader that comes to the paper for whatever reason that one time isn't excluded or left out of what it is you're going to do. And
Yeah.
journalists do that naturally. We're natural at being quick, efficient, inclusive explainers,
Yeah.
like 2 or 3 words.
Yeah.
And we're tidy, and we work at a, what is it, 8th grade vocabulary we're supposed to work with.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah. Just
But what
stay away
I,
from the big words.
yeah, the $5 words, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
No contusions,
Well,
just
they were 50
bruises.
cent words when I was in college, but inflation.
But I think it makes for some really clean writing.
Yeah.
I think journalists, you're told you have 15 inches. So if you really want this part of the story included, or if I wanted that less, like with that column that you read, it ends up being 550 words, which I know there's always my personal word limit. It makes a nice tidy 15 inches. When I wrote it out, it was 1,500 words easily.
Yeah.
But I trimmed it down to 500 without losing the narrative arc of the story I was telling. I just constantly was pushing myself to be more condensed, more condensed, more condensed.
Yeah.
What I noticed with these personal essays is, if you want to be Montaigne and write 26 pages worth, then you can do that. So I think that's the big difference. So even when I'm reading some of these personal essays, my journalism background's like, you can kind of that up a little bit and just get to the story.
Yeah.
But I think that probably is the biggest difference. I also think journalists have more of an onus that if they are making a comment about society, they're getting to it and they're getting to it quickly.
Yeah.
Whereas some of these essayists, even some of the runs that I was reading, they got this kind of double narrative. You don't really know that they're actually making a political commentary until the end. A columnist would be way more straightforward about what it is that they're doing. So, but other than that, I think they're playing in the same sandbox and they're using the same toys.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you brought, what's the name of the essay you brought by E.B. White?
Once more
to the lake.
Yeah.
And that's not a fast read. I mean, you're going along. You're going along on a sentimental journey. I guess would be the way to put it. But sentimental is kind of trite sounding. It's a little deeper than that. So why don't you tell us a little bit about it, and actually also where people might be able to find it?
Well, honestly, you can do a Google search and find it,
Sure.
Or you can buy this very impressive book called The Art of the Personal Essay. Which is where I found it in. The reason why I brought it, or why it caught my attention, was I was at a lake when I was reading this essay called Once More to the Lake. And I was at the lake to take a break from some chaotic situation that we were currently in and to stuff these essays in. And what impressed me about it was beautiful, like you said, sentimental. And that's sort of what I thought I was reading until he did a little bait and switch on me halfway through it and ended up talking about death. But it was beautiful, and it ended up being very applicable to the reason why I was taking a time out and sitting by the lake. So I guess that's why
Yeah. So tell us about.
Well, I mean, basically he's taking his son to an inland lake in Maine that he's gone to every year of his childhood. And he says at the beginning that he's a saltwater man now, but every once in a while he doesn't want the chaos and the unpredictability of saltwater. He wanted to go to this placid, still place with his son. And then as a Michigan person, I was like, yeah, I mean, this guy was nailing what it means to be at an inland lake. The sacredness of it, the sereneness, the repeating of what people do at these lakes. And it was beautiful word pictures, which is something I don't normally get to indulge myself in. You're being quick, so you're not spending 60 words describing a tree. You're spending 2. And it's beautiful. Then he just, every once in a while, he's watching his son do the things that he does, and he has this slip into, am I my son, or am I me? Am I my father? And I guess that caught me, because I do think when we have kids, we kind of give birth to this fleshy time capsule, and where our kids, they move about their lives, and every once in a while in the chaos, I'll have that moment where I was like, I know exactly where your head was when you did this thing. I've done something like that. You have those moments with kids. But also when you have kids, you look at your parents differently. Um, I remember apologizing to my mother at Christmas Eve because I always thought she was in a bad mood on Christmas Day, but really she was just doing what parents do on Christmas Eve, which is exhausting. So like I was interesting watching him go through. But when he's thinking about his father or he's thinking about his son, he doesn't use these beautiful, serene words. He uses things like, it gave me a creepy sensation, or I felt dizzy and I didn't know what end I was on. Like, he's not comfortable with this. It's not a sentimental journey. It's disturbing.
Yeah, you're right.
Then he goes back to these placid pictures. And then he ends the thing where he just perfectly describes a thunderstorm over at Inland Lake. I mean, he nails every part of it. And the end of the essay, this was written in 1941. When he describes what people do when the thunderstorm passes and it's just raining on the lake, I was like, I've done that. I've done that, and my kids have done that. And he so beautifully describes the joy of swimming in the lake while it's raining. Why we think that's so funny. Ha ha ha. And then he gets to the part where his son's like, I'm going to go swim in the lake in the rain. And being basically an old man, which is what I think his problem is, he's like, oh, I'm not going. You go ahead. And he watches the kid pull on the swim trunks that have been soaked in the rain. And I guess that's the part. This is where it ended. It's just a short paragraph. If you want, I can read it.
Sure.
Instead of me butchering the great essayist. So while the others went swimming, my son said he was going in too. He pulled his dripping trunks from the line where they had hung all through the shower and wrung them out. Languidly and with no thought of going in, I watched him, his hard little body, skinny and bare, saw him wince slightly as he pulled up around his vitals the small, soggy, icy garment. And as he buckled the swollen belt, suddenly my groin felt the chill of death. And I put the essay book down and I was like, oh, you sucker punched me.
Yeah, you didn't see it coming, did you?
No, but it was funny because I was at the lake because my family was getting ready to go on their vacation to an inland lake. We've done this every year. We've done this every year before I can remember it not happening. But it was a huge problem this year because of COVID. And we're a family of like 34 at this point, okay? And people were arguing, should we go? Should we not go? Blah, blah, blah. And reading this essay, we talked a lot about death, like, what if mom and dad get sick? What if, I've never been on vacation where we talk about death so much. But it made me realize why it was important for me to go, even with the risk. Because that stillness is our break from the saltwater life, right? Like, we all appreciate chaos. In a way, we hide behind it. But when we go on vacation, we take a break. And I do know on vacation, I watched my parents become the bystanders and me move from a child to a caretaker. And now my children are baby adults. And it's my nieces and nephews that were, I watched my younger sibs do what I did 12 years ago, and there's something about it that reminds you, A, it's really sacred having this time together, but B, it's really finite what you're doing. And in a weird way, it's important to go because that's a little bit how we say goodbye in real time. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense.
And so here was this guy writing this essay like 79 years ago, and I felt like he was in my head. And that's what I love about writing. That's what I love about those moments. So is it a great, fantastic, all-encompassing read? No. But at that weird moment, this guy who I don't know brought some clarity to my own thoughts. Yeah. Well, I happened to be sitting at an inland lake that he happened to be writing about a different inland lake. Like that part. That's what's awesome.
Yeah. Every week we haven't been doing it for a few weeks, but we always, when I find a guest, we always pick a theme and we all go out and find stuff. But to me, it seems like everything kind of ties back together when you're talking about great writing, right? I mean, it really does. Even in Blood Meridian, Nicole. Oh. we were talking about Cormac McCarthy before we hit the live button. We have differences of opinion on that. But so
Yes,
the
we do.
book, we're coming up on 8 o'clock. But the one thing, when I had already read The Bear by Andrew Kavak, when I reached out to you, or when I wrote to you in a panic saying, "Help! Somebody, we won't mention his name, canceled on me this week." And uh, and when I I actually had read Once Again to the Lake, or whatever it's called. Did I get it right? Once more
Once
to
more
the
to the
Lake.
lake.
I'd actually read it as a possible candidate for this show like months ago when snow was flying, I think. Um, and I saw parallels between that and this book, which on its face might seem a little bit crazy. The Bear, I can't recommend it enough, and I feel as though that it was almost written for this time that we're in. But it's a post apocalyptic story, where this man and his daughter are literally the last two human beings on Earth, and that sounds pretty bleak. But what is amazing, and what just pulls you through the book, is not only the relationship between the man and his daughter, and I don't want to give too much away from the story, um, but also them and living in nature. And of course, in the book, I mean, it's a fable, and they have relationships with the animals. And at one point in the book, after the father has, I will give away that the father has died. Um, a bear is her companion and communicates with her, and talks to her. But the lessons are just exquisite, and the writing is very spare, but very, very beautiful. And I do want to read just a little to give you a taste, but I will put up the title on, so you can see what it is. You can get it at the library, or you can get it on Libby, which is, I listened to it on a trip out west, or I'm sorry, out east. Um, let me. I only picked three things, but we've talked so long, Nicole, that I'm only going to have time to read one.
I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. No, I do that every week because it's such a good book. Um, so this is When She Is with the Bear, and this is really talking about loss and memory, and how even when people pass, they're with you. And I'm just going to read. Just bear with me a little bit. When the bear returned, he sat across from the girl and seemed to sway in the firelight. He told her he was beginning to feel the need to sleep overcoming his need to eat, and even his voice sounded deeper and more distant now. The cave, he knew, was yet another day's hike into the range. It was a good cave and would serve her well for the winter, he said, but she should know now that the day was coming soon when she would be alone again. The bear said nothing else, and they sat in their silent companionship around the fire and felt its warmth. Above them, clouds skittered away, revealing the stars of a cold and moonless sky. But the girl's gaze remained on the roar of the fire she had raised till last night, and she felt glad for the heat of it on her face. The bear said from the shadows, "You miss him, don't you?" The girl said nothing in reply, and the bear sat up on his haunches, and continued to sway in the firelight. "More than this will remind you of him," he said, "and you will feel the loss like cold closing in around you. I know." "You don't know," said the girl in a loud and sudden voice. "Every morning I wake, I expect to see him. Every time we round a bend, every snap of stick in this forest is one that he is breaking just ahead of me. And in the evening, I'll see a shape out of the corner of my eye. But when I look, it's just the flames or the moonlight, and I wish it wasn't." "I do know," the bear said again. "You don't," shouted the girl. The bear tilted his head back and pointed to a cluster of stars low in the sky, and with the same deep and rolling voice said, "Look, that is my ancestor, the great bear. Do you see her? My mother taught me how to find her and use her as a guide." "I see it," the girl said. "My father taught me to follow the dipper that points to the North Star, just like the compass he gave me." "Yes," said the bear, "but look in the other direction, and you see not just the tail, but the body entire. abandoned there in the forest of night. His outstretched claw then traced across to the left corner of the sky, as though he were drawing the constellation itself into existence. No matter how far and wide I wander through the woods or in my sleep, I look up and take my bearings from it, just as I was taught. The fire cracked and settled into flames of orange and blue that leapt around the logs like ants the bear pursued. That's why you're alone, the girl said. Until this autumn, yes, said the bear, wandering now with you. But I miss whom I once could touch, as all must do when we make our way through whatever forest or wood it is in which we travel or are raised. This does not mean the man is lost or has disappeared forever. For although he no longer walks beside you, he still remains in the time and place of memory, and this is where he will appear again and again, as often as you will seek him. Not only in those places where he has always been, but where he could not be then, yet will be now, in the slant of light on a lake shore, in the silence between footfalls along a path, in the scent of wood smoke from a fire around which you will sit alone. Have you not come to know something of your own mother in the stories your father told, the places she walked, the tasks she learned, which she knew her mother knew well? Yes, said the girl. This is what I've been trying to tell you, said the bear. Your father knew this too. What he didn't understand was that you never knew what it was like to miss your mother the way he missed her. Now you do. Once upon a time, loss was, for many of your own, the only constant they knew. But it is no less difficult or constant now that you know it is only you, nor it will be on the day the earth alone misses you, though it will see years of my own cubs born and sent to wander before you cease to rise with the sun. Anyway, The Bear, Andrew Kavach, highly recommend it. And we seem to have lost Nicole. She was having some network issues before, so I'm assuming that that's what happened. I don't think she got tired of me, but appreciate you coming and watching. And we'll be back next week and the week after. We are committed to doing this for at least the next 8 weeks, and we'll continue to bring guests from the community. And there's Nicole. So you weren't bored with me.
No, I didn't third chapter quit. No, it was very compelling. I have it written down.
Yeah.
I think I will order the book with a box of tissues, though. That might be a tough one.
Well, it is, but I think what you'll find in it, and actually, we don't really have time. We're after 8 o'clock now, but Andrew Kravach has a website in which he talks about his inspiration for the bear, which really came from a story that his father told him as a child about a real bear and how that bear helps them find their lost dog. And of course, he has taken that and wound it into a fable. But it's really a hopeful story because it talks about, or it shows us how connected we are in this life and in other planes, but also how we are connected with the earth and the world around us. So very peaceful. I think a good read in this time when so much is uncertain. So
I agree, and I'm excited to do it. And I think that was part of the other thing that this triggered reading this stuff, is that we have to remember, as all-encompassing as this is, it is just a chapter in a very long book, and one we're living through together, but it will end.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
well, it's been fun.
Yes, it has. Thank
you. Always enjoy getting together with you. I have my email address and my phone number up on the screen. If anybody has something to suggest that they would like to share on this show, if someone would like to come on this show, I am always looking for guests. It's easy, right, Nicole? As long as you have a good internet connection.
Yeah, I don't know, is it you or me who keeps blipping out? But
well, I'm going to blame it on you.
And I also blame it on you because you're outside and I'm clearly in an office. So.
I have 200-foot Ethernet cable
All right, you win. You win.
that I am running from my router all the way into the house. So
Okay,
anyway,
well, I didn't know I needed a 200 Ethernet cable. I'll get that next time.
a hard connection is better than a wireless connection. But
All right.
anyway, all right. Well, thanks again.
No
I'll have you
problem.
back sometime. Good
All
luck
right.
with
Thank you.
your fall class, which is coming right up,
Thank you. Appreciate
and
that.
and then everything else you do. And I'm glad you're still writing for our community.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All right. Good night, everybody.
Good night.